Morning, everyone. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, let's get going.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Domoslawska, and I am from Research Now. Today, together with my partner, James Murray, Digital Insight Manager from Experian, we will be presenting you findings of our seasonal holiday study on multidimensional view of consumers using our new joint methodology. The agenda for today is with a short introduction of who we are to those who don't know us. We will provide more background and details on the methodology with context for the study, key findings, segments, and conclusions. And all of it we hope to accomplish in the next 30 minutes.
So who are we? The cool thing about what we're going to be talking to you today, this has never been done before, and what we've done is we've taken two quite separate, quite distinct technologies, and we've brought them together to show you something which hopefully you'll find quite interesting, and we're going to be reviewing some really interesting key insights about what's going on online and offline for the Christmas market. So, as Marie said, I'm James. I'm from a company called Experian, and today, particularly, we're going to be talking to you about one of our products, which is Experian Hitwise. For those of you who haven't heard of it before, Experian Hitwise, what it does is it basically is an online analytics tool which enables us to measure where people are going online, what searches they're typing into Google, what websites they're visiting, and some of the interactions between websites. We have the largest number of internet users in the world, around 25 million internet users worldwide. In the UK, we're covering about a quarter of the online population, and as I'm sure you can imagine, that gives us an extraordinary amount of depth of data into the visibility of people's online behaviours. Just to give you a bit of context, we see about visits to over 1 million websites every single day. We can tell you what happened online yesterday and today, about 15 million different searches and variations every single week. So partnered now with Research Now, we can start to get really depth and a lot of granularity of data.
And Research Now is the global leader of digital data collection. We are one of the largest panels with 6.8 million panelists globally, covering 38 countries with our panelists with 25 offices worldwide in EMEA, North America, and Asia.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the sort of methodology that we've done to bring this to you today, and then we'll go through some of the key findings.
So for the background and explanation, what its single source methodology means here is that we conducted the study based on the same group of respondents. The methodology was twofold. First, we asked respondents questions, a survey, and then we tracked their behaviors online. This particular study took place during the holiday season. The good thing about the new digital Research Now meter panel with Hitwise is that we can track respondents retroactively as well as far in the future. Therefore, their behaviors in the study were tracked between December 1 and January 15th. We asked a survey between December 21st and 24th, just before Christmas. And overall, 1,403 respondents took the survey and were tracked online during the study. We want to have a broad representation since this was a holiday study. Therefore, we made sure we have a good coverage across the basic demographics with gender, age across all the different groups, household income, as well as social grade and region.
So why are we talking about Christmas? Obviously we're in February now and Christmas has come and gone. Hands up if you're retailers in the room. You work for the retail space? A couple of you? Okay. So we know that we wanted to be able to demonstrate the capabilities of what we could do when we started to bring together these two different data sets. And we know that Christmas is something which everybody's involved with, even if you're not in the retail space, but particularly because we know that Christmas is the biggest time of the year for retailers, and so this is something which is really important. We want to, if we sort of dive into some of the findings of the survey, we want to give you a little bit of context about how big Christmas was. So 2012, Christmas has been absolutely massive. In fact, it's the biggest Christmas ever online. We saw a 30% increase in online business going to retail websites compared to December 2011. 2.85 billion visits just from the UK alone going to retailers in the month of December. That is absolutely phenomenal number of visits. 600 million more than we saw in December 2011, and 372 million hours spent online just shopping. We think about the growth of digital and how more and more of our lives are becoming intertwined with digital, and this is the things that we're seeing in terms of people's online shopping habits. So I want to take that a step further and show you some of the key days of December when people were shopping. What you see from this chart is there's sort of two big peaks. The first peak comes at the beginning of December, and in particular Cyber Monday. So the first Monday of December for the last few years has been the single biggest day of the pre-Christmas shopping peak. People go online, they want to do some of their research and they start buying their presents early to give themselves the maximum amount of time to get stuff delivered before Christmas. Then you'll see the traffic starts to sort of drop off, but Mondays are consistently the biggest days. And then you'll see the biggest spike overall was the Boxing Day. And again, for the last 4 or 5 years, Boxing Day has been the single biggest day of the year for retail visits. This is when people are buying their stuff using Christmas money which they've got on Christmas Day, or they're taking back gifts which they don't like, or they're looking for buying stuff in the sales. The other thing which we'll come on to a little bit later is Christmas Eve, which has historically been quite a poor day for shopping, saw a massive 87% increase in visits year on year. And we, as I say, we'll touch on the reasons why that is later. But yeah, this was clearly a phenomenal effort in terms of online growth. One of the great things about working for Experian is that we get not just sort of single sources of data, but lots and lots of different data sets. And so what we've got here is the differences between online and offline shopping habits. So the red line is people visiting stores online, and then the blue line is when they're going on to the high street, so high street footfall, going into stores in some of the big shopping centres, like sort of Blue Water or Trafford Centre, up and down the country. A few key things which I think are really relevant here, which starts to sort of paint a picture. Firstly, that consumers are don't necessarily just think online or offline, they're actually quite integrated. You can see that quite quickly in the fact that the biggest day of the week consistently for people going onto the high street is Saturdays, and that makes sense. People work during the week and shop at the weekend. This also corresponds with the lowest day of the week for online shopping. Online is much more prevalent on Mondays, as I've already said, and so you can see how these sort of intertwine between each other. The key trend, as I've said, it starts in November and so get sort of closer towards that first week of shopping in the beginning of December. Online and offline both sort of go up in tandem. Then that first bubble in the pink, that's Cyber Monday, and as I said, you can see after that initial sort of crescendo building towards the pre-Christmas shopping peak online, then you can see the red line start to dissipate the closer and closer we get to Christmas. Essentially, is that a question? Yep. So the question is, do we have an hourly breakdown? The answer to that is no, we don't. So at the moment, the stuff that we do is only restricted to the day, but we're always sort of building a methodology to try and sort of get insights into when people are actually going online. One of the developments that we've got with the mobile proposition, which is coming a bit later this year, is we'll be able to track people by the app. But at the moment, where was it? Okay, so the online stuff starts to sort of fall away a little bit, and that's basically because people have less confidence that this stuff's going to get delivered in time for Christmas Eve. Then you can see that's when the blue line starts to go to the forward, goes up and up and up. That one with the blue circle there, that's the last Saturday before Christmas. That's people like me, your very disorganised shopper who doesn't have time to get themselves organised and get all of the gifts beforehand, and so we're busily panic shopping at the last minute on the high street, trying to get stuff for mum and dad and all of the various cousins. Then you'll see that immediately after the Saturday, the offline stuff starts to drop, and so no one's going into stores for Christmas Day itself, but there's a big spike again for online, so people are starting to shop a lot more, and then you've got the second pink dot, which is the separate Boxing Day. So this is just a flavour of some of the things of what was going on generally in Christmas, and now we're going to sort of delve into some of the key findings that we found from doing the survey, and in particular the lessons that can be learned by getting survey results and then pairing that with some of the wider behavioural data.
So like James said, with the context in mind, of knowing what's going on and how busy holiday season is, we designed a survey. And one of the questions we asked our respondents, what are they shopping for this season? And found that we actually had three distinctive groups among our respondents who took the survey. 59% shop for themselves and others. There's big family shopping events. About 18% shop for only others. And then we had 1 in 5 of respondents who claimed that they only shop for themselves during the holiday season. This is really important to know because advertisers and brands can set their own questions to try to answer what is going on during the different times of the day in their behaviors. Another question we asked was more aspirational. If money was no object, what would be the one thing that you would like to get during this holiday season? Any guesses from the audience? What was the most desired thing this Christmas? What is it? Ferrari. Not very far off.
iPad. Holiday. Okay?
Brilliant. Number 1, gadgets. Number 2, cars. Thank you very much. Number 3, travel. And then we had 2 additional categories, which were household and furniture, and of course, clothes.
So one of the things that we find really interesting about this is tapping into people's dreams and their aspirations. But often, as I'm sure we'd all love to have a Ferrari or love to be able to go on a luxury holiday, but what people would aspire to buy very rarely coincides with what they actually buy. And so what we're able to do here with the behavioural data is say, okay, well, what were people actually buying? Anyone know what the most searched for gift overall this Christmas was? iPad? Anything else? iPhone 5? Sadly, it's none of these things. The actual answer is onesies. Now, I don't quite know if this man is responsible for this trend, but the fact that this is the most searched for gift this Christmas terrifies me. But it's true. And one of the great things about this data is that you can have all of the hypotheses and all of the assumptions in the world, but you're very often proven wrong. And what you think is the case, we found is very often actually not the case. Here's something that was particularly funny when we started delving into that trend. When we started looking at all of the different ways that people were searching for onesies, this is a word cloud of the most popular recurring terms around onesies. 12% of searches included the word either men or men's, whereas only 5% included the word lady or women's. What that means is that men's onesies are twice as popular, more than twice as popular as women's onesies. Whereas if you thought, I think if I'd asked the population here, generally we would have seen that this is more of a gift which women would buy perhaps when they want to lounge around, around the home almost as a replacement for pyjamas rather than men. For those of you who are interested, if you're going to be sporting this great piece of fashion and you want to make sure that you're keeping up with the key trends, the top 3 onesies, the animal patterns that people wanted to go as: giraffes, tigers and penguins. So there you have it. That's what people are going to be wearing. Here's a sort of iPad and iPhone. Well done to you people. So tablets have become extremely popular this year. So when we look at overall searches for all of the key products that people were really interested in, although onesies was number 1, Lego was number 2, so the classic children's toy is always in there, always in the mix. But 25% of all searches overall were for a tablet of some sort, whether that be the iPad Mini, Kindle Fire, the Galaxy Samsung Tab, the Microsoft Surface. And so, I'm sure you are going to hear this many, many times today. But 2013, the year of mobile. If you thought mobile was big this year in terms of online traffic, wait until you get to next year. when we start to see all of those new tablets being used, people's time increasingly being spent on tablets. 21% largely driven by the fact that onesies were so popular were searches for clothes, and only 8% of searches were for games and games consoles and accessories. This is something which we feel is quite low benchmarking against other years, but it's something that's likely to increase this year when we get the advent of the new games consoles, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox 720.
So keep in mind the survey was asked between December 21 and 24, just 3 days before Christmas. And we asked respondents, where are you with your shopping right now? A third was already done, but interestingly enough, 46% were still shopping and also waiting for January and a Boxing Day sales. Yet, still 3 days before Christmas, they were hoping, 56% of those, that they will be done before Christmas. For budgets, Boxing Day and January sales had another good half of the percentage points. Why this is important for us? Because when we look at their online behaviors...
So what we've done here is then have a look at the key sort of when people are shopping online. And you can see, similar to the slide that I showed earlier, there's a lot of people who've done a lot of their sort of shopping activity quite early in the Christmas period. But actually, it's this big slide here which is most sort of relevant. And so this is in the last couple of days before Christmas, people are looking to buy that last minute bit of shopping, and they're still looking to get it online. And as we saw from the previous slide, nearly half of the people that we saw in the survey were hoping that they were going to get their shopping done before Christmas. And so this is this consumer demand has pushed forward expectations of retailers. We expect people to be able to deliver much quicker, have a turnaround much quicker. One of the things that we saw this year was a 40% rise in people doing click and collect services, so ordering online and being able to pick it up from the store. But what we did see also was a lot of the retailers felt pressure to bring forward their sales, and that's why, come back to, I mentioned this earlier, we saw such a big increase in people making visits on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So 70% increase in visits going to retail websites on Christmas Day itself. This is when people probably should be spending time with the family, but it's become a shopping day in its own right. And actually, it was the increase of these 2 days, which meant that Boxing Day, although we saw a 17% increase, was probably a little bit muted from what we would have expected. But overall, if we take those 3 days together, 300 million visits from UK internet users going to retail websites in those 3 days. That's a 50% increase overall compared to the same 3 days in the previous period. So what does that mean? Well, it effectively means that retailers have killed Christmas. We're no longer spending time with our families talking, playing games, having arguments about who's going to win at Monopoly. We're going online and we're shopping. And there's a constant drive to go for the Boxing Day deals, but the whole notion actually of the Boxing Day sale is becoming meaningless when the sales are coming forward and they're creeping forward and forward. So when retailers are offering their Boxing Day discounts on Christmas Day, shoppers are going out to actually go and purchase those items quickly. One of the cool things that we can do then is when we're pairing the data together is we can say, okay, well, what are you interested in? If you're going to buy a slightly larger item, so perhaps you want to make a significant investment, how do you go about that? And one of the top things that people said was that 3/4 of the respondents said that they used price comparison sites to go and compare prices online. Now, that might come as a massive surprise to you, and that's all very well, but actually just knowing that people compare price comparison sites, compare prices online is not actually that useful. One of the cool things that we can do is we can show you, all right, where are these price comparers going? And that's what we've got here. And the interesting thing that emerges is that it's not just the most obvious examples. So on the left-hand side here, we've got the top price comparison sites by visit volume. And then on this middle column here, we've got the top price comparison sites which are visited by people who said that they like comparing prices online. What we'll see is that although SuperPrice is the #1 website overall for both sets of groups, the online people in general, the online population in general, and people who said they like price comparing. Actually, when we took the size of that population and what we expect them to do, they're much less likely to go superprice and go to other websites. What emerged was that My Supermarket, which although it was only the fourth biggest price comparison site overall, people who said that they like comparing prices, they said they were actually 13% more likely to visit that site, and therefore, this we would say is the price comparers price comparison site. So we can show you where people are going, what they're doing, and then which ones you should be partnering with if you really want to get those target hunters.
So going back to our respondents and the survey questions, we ask respondents where they intend to shop. And this is a result of their visitation intent for the holiday season, with Amazon, eBay, and John Lewis, Argos, and Tesco being the usual suspects. What's interesting here, when we actually put this all in a bar chart and look at the ranking order and layer this later with the behavior data where they actually went during this period of time, we find that as much as the top 10 websites are more or less in the same order, one came out quite interesting, and it was HotUKDeals.com. Respondents only mentioned this as the number 12 on their list, yet it was the second most visited website among these respondents. What is this demonstrating to you is that people actually say and do different things, and perhaps the Hot UK Deals is a website that they don't want others to know that they're looking for discounts and vouchers during the holiday season when they really do. Further, what we looked at is the segments, those who shop for themselves versus those who shop for themselves and others. We found that there was statistical significance between the types of websites that they're visiting. This is all self-reported data, yet it shows that those who shop for themselves are much less likely, statistically significantly less likely than those who shop for families and themselves go to websites like eBay, Argos, and Tesco, but more likely to go to Debenhams and John Lewis. That actually prompted us to dig a little bit deeper and merge further our methodologies with finding more information on the segments and their behaviors.
So as we're bringing this together now, we can start to see not just looking at our particular panel, so our 1,400 odd people, but we can start to widen the breadth of this and start to show you where people are going in a wider context. And so using our Experian segmentation system, which we call Mosaic, in essence what Mosaic does, it takes each of the people in the UK and breaks them down into 15 core groups, and within those core groups we subset those into 67 different subtypes. Now there are lots and lots of different data sets which feed into this, and in total we have about 500 different data points which we can benchmark anyone of the UK by. We cover about 98% of the adult population with this segmentation data, and so it really sort of starts to show you the wider picture where people can start seeing their behavioural habits. So what we did when we looked at those three groups that we talked about, people who shop for themselves, people who shop mainly for others, and people who shop for both, there were very different demographics which came out for those three groups. So you can see the red line, anything which is above the line is where they're more likely, below the line is where they're less likely. So two key groups here for the red line, which is people who are the more selfish shoppers, active retirement, people who are slightly older and quite affluent, people who perhaps have more disposable income to be able to go and afford some of those more pricey, more indulgent items. And new homemakers, people who just bought a house, they perhaps haven't started down the journey of having a family, but they are not necessarily going to be buying lots of gifts for others, but they will be buying something themselves. What's interesting is we could start to take these different segments and tell you a lot more about them. And so when we relay that back to what these different segments, what their shopping habits are, there's a few things which really come through. So these are the top 15 websites ranked by visits overall over Christmas. But these then are whether the different groups are more or less likely to visit those websites. So So people who are selfish shoppers, people who shop mostly for themselves, they're more likely to go to the online clothing and fashion websites. They're more likely to go to ASOS, for example. People who shop for others, they're much more price conscious. Perhaps they've got more people to shop for, and so they're more likely to go to the likes of eBay, but also Gumtree. They're going to be the ones who are shopping for those bargains so that they can reduce the amount of spend that they're going to have overall when they're shopping for lots of different people. And finally, people who shop for both, the final column there, these are people who have lots and lots of different people to buy for. These are the pressured minds who don't necessarily have the time to go hunting around for the best deals, so they're much more likely to go to the big department stores online. They're going for those one-stop shops at the likes of Amazon, John Lewis, where they can go and get all of their shopping done from one single source. And the thing which I think comes into this, which is really important, is whilst this isn't particularly new, being able to link survey data and demographics data, what is new is that we can start to get a much broader reach of the way that people are behaving online. So this is a snapshot of the new homemakers group. People say, people often come to us and they say, we have an idea about who our core customers are, and they'll have quite a fluffy sort of marketing description of what they look like. And meet Jane, she's a 45-year-old mum who's just got 2 kids and she likes the iPad. That's all very well, but actually, how do you go about finding more people like Jane? This is where this data becomes particularly important, because we can show you not just where they live in the country, but also what social networks are they most integrated on, what media do they consume, are they Daily Mail readers or are they Guardian readers? There are so many different things which we can delve into, which will show you where these people are, what their habits are, and what they really look like. But then using the research data, we can then go and find those people and ask them specific questions about why they're doing these things.
So for conclusions, really it's all about the technology. Technology is changing our lives, is changing our consumers, but also technology fuels new methodologies that allow brands to get closer to consumers, to understand their mindsets, aspiration, and actual behaviors.
I think one of the key things to take away is that there is no average customer. So it's no good just having a sort of one-size-fits-all approach to your customers, because you really have to understand what they're actually like. And having a combination of these data sets starts to become quite exciting when you can see who your customers are, how they're behaving, where they're going online, when they're going to go online, and then also sort of come back to asking them questions of why they're doing certain things. We can infer a lot from consumer sort of intent about what they're doing when they're searching for certain things, but being able to actually go and ask those people and say, what is it, why is it you're doing these things, that is where this becomes really powerful.
And hopefully with the context of the study and some key findings, we prove the point that the path to purchase is constantly evolving. Looking at the historical data, we can see that year to year the behaviors are changing and are different. Therefore, brands can't afford not to follow up the trends. They need to look at and track the evolving new emerging touch points.
Okay, that's it from us. I realise we're very nearly out of time, so probably not time for questions, but inevitably with these sessions I find people want to either go to the next session anyway. If you've really got a question which you just really want to ask, we will be hanging around at the end, and you can take a card, or you can come and see us on our stands, either at E40 for Research Now, or C17 for Experian, or you can drop us an email or send us a tweet. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful.